Make a sincere effort to become friends with technology. I made a promise to myself when I began to write these essays not to include too many stories with me featuring in them. However, for this chapter, I will relate a short story which does include some facts about a certain time in my life. I entered into the insurance and finance industry at a reasonably young age. Right from the beginning, I was self-employed and operated my own business. Fortunately for me, my father-in-law was a very successful businessman in the same industry, and I thank him very much for his help and encouragement over many years, which, without doubt, was substantially responsible for enabling me to stay in the industry for almost 25 years. From the mid-1970s to the mid-1990s, I was able to successfully operate my business with a minimum of involvement in the ever-growing world of the new computer technology. However, it became increasingly difficult for me to ignore the need for accepting and, indeed, embracing the new technological world. First, we were introduced to the wonders of the laptop. We were unable to conduct a large portion of our business activities any longer without it, because much of the information required was only available through computer programs. Then it became necessary to have the elaborate desktop computer as well, to process and store all the different information and records required. Now, of course, it also required the employment of a secretary, and then an office administrator to oversee the day-to-day operations of the business. My world was rapidly changing. More and more processes were only possible by computer, and it became a dominant part of the daily operations of the business. Now, this brings me to the reason why I began the chapter with this story about myself. For the truth was, although I was technically embracing all these changes, emotionally and spiritually, I most definitely was not. My mindset was almost 100% against all the changes. I had enjoyed the way I had built my business, particularly with a person-to-person association with my clients, many of whom became my close friends over the years. Over time, I came to deeply resent the changes brought about by the technology, and also the huge changes in government legislation and corporate power. I allowed myself to become more isolated from the mainstream flow of the industry and also from my business colleagues, and as a consequence became more and more discontented with my business and my life. Sadly, I allowed this situation to come to a head in the mid-90s, where it severely affected my health, and I was forced to sell my business and leave the industry forever. The message I wish to convey by this tale is that I have been able, after many years, to finally realise and understand that almost all of the unfortunate circumstances that occurred over this period were not brought about by the actual changes themselves, but because of my stubborn rejection and my unwillingness to accept and acknowledge that they were a perfectly acceptable and normal progression of society, business, and indeed the world at large. I am not foolish enough to suggest that all change is for the good. However, what I would like to suggest to you is that if we take a very hard look at all the changes as they arise and consider the positive advantages which may open up to us from these changes, and that we do not dwell on the past situations too much. We need to open our minds to the future with enthusiasm and high expectations of it allowing us to have a more abundant and enjoyable time ahead, instead of allowing the past to crush our spirits and destroy our passion and enthusiasm for what lays ahead of us in the future. There is a saying, God Please give me the strength to change the things I can, to accept the things I cannot change, and the wisdom to recognise the difference. I would like to suggest that you take a little time to think on these things and consider seriously accepting that change is inevitable. It will occur whether we want it to or not. So please make a sincere effort to become friends with technology.